the Royal Blue podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Royal Blue podcast. I am your host today, Joe Thomas, the Everton correspondent for the Liverpool Echo. Alongside me is Gav Buckland. Gav, there's no Chris Beasley today because Chris Beasley is off this week. However, there have been reported sightings of a suited Chris Beasley in the Winslow this morning, which I don't know why he was there. I'm not sure if you do either, but I mean, that's one of the big mysteries I think for us to find out for when he's back next week.
Yeah. He's not still there from Saturday night, is he? Joe, perhaps, maybe he's over-celebrated the last-minute equaliser a bit longer than what he should have done. Yeah, I think this will all come out in the wash, I think. Obviously, something going on. And of course, Chris has got a book out. We have to plug Chris's book as well, don't we? I think at the end of is it?
Yeah, at the end of the season, that's coming out, isn't it? Big tribute to the 100 kind of most important and most memorable matches of Goodison. So, I mean, we'll look forward to that. And the cover of it is fantastic. Obviously, we're speaking over audio largely for this, and we haven't got it yet to show it yet. But I mean, when the time comes, we'll plug in. It'll be a fantastic book. But yeah, Chris is there. That's one of the two big mysteries for me to solve this week. Because the other one, Gav, I'm not sure if you've seen the stuff around this, is the bird skeleton in the Bullens Road that's been there for goodness knows how long. He used to kind of, the silhouette of there was like Jurassic Park's logo, wasn't it? And all of a sudden, it's gone and been replaced by a big blue question mark. Yeah.
I'd never heard about this thing actually until Saturday, it is a bit of a mystery, isn't it? It's again, it's a bit like Chris's chooses the booted appearance in the Winslow, isn't it? It'll come out in the wash. I'm sure we'll find out. I didn't know about this.
I did.
I never heard of it.
Well, for a long time, I've kind of speculated as to whether or not it's some sort of cursed object that's been there to kind of really, explain some of the troubles that Everton have had over recent years. And I mean, if it's been removed now, then hopefully that's a sign of genuine success to come.
Yeah,
what I'm hoping that like a red hasn't gone up there, got it, and buried it somewhere at Bramley Moor to me.
Yeah, that's the fear, isn't it? Really. No, we'll see. Hopefully that'll resolve itself as well.
Obviously, we have far bigger issues to talk about than both of those mysteries. Everton extending their unbeaten Premier League run to 9 games on Saturday with that draw over West Ham. The draw coming courtesy of a stoppage time Jake O'Brien goal. His second goal for Everton, his second goal in the unbeaten run that he's been a really big part of. Gav, thoughts on the game first and foremost? I mean, I think going into Wolves the week before, the topic of conversation in the press box from those of us of a blue persuasion was very much the season is mainly over. We think we're safe even if David Moyes and others around him don't want to say it. There's a bit of a danger of a few of these kind of seemingly nothing games kind of ebbing and flowing for the rest of the season. Wolves felt like one. Did you think West Ham did as well?
Yeah, I mean, also as well, the two managers, I won't say that they've got similar styles, but their attitudes of the game's quite similar, isn't it, in terms of the way they set the teams out. Obviously, Potter's, inherited a lot of Moyes' players. So, the fact that they looked, and I wouldn't say mirror image of each other, but on that basis, it wasn't a surprise if there'd been something on anyway that you would have got a similar game, to be honest with you. But we would take that, would we, Joe? At Christmas, a few meaningless games. Having said that, I don't, Moyes' teams have always tended to finish the season strongly, certainly in his last few years of his first spell. And, you've got the carrot avenue of £3 million a place, which I think we'd all appreciate. And I'm a great believer you're taking good form at the end of one season always transmits itself to good form at the start of the next. Few players playing for their futures, really, with so many out of contract. And who want, the few players also wanting to impress who are under contract. So I don't think he'll see it that way. Whether it pans out like that, I'm not sure. But I mean, at the end of the day, in April, we're playing some big teams, aren't we? In April, and I mean, and to be fair, Joe, I mean, we spoke on Saturday before this, didn't we? You know, that the Arsenal Liverpool games, all of a sudden that seems really high pressure a month or 6 weeks ago. The way the table's gone since, all of a sudden, they may not have a lot going for it in terms of in terms of Arsenal and Liverpool. So they look a little bit more easier than what they did 5 or 6 weeks ago on that basis.
Gav, do you think that's actually quite helpful then when you look at that April, that there's always a danger that the flip-flops come on towards the end of the season now with as I say, pride and yes, a few £1 million for places, and that is important to play for. I guess what Moyes will be saying to those players is, one, obviously there's a lot of those that have got their futures to play for because a lot of them are out of contract, and several of those players do want to have futures at Everton if they can somehow get them. But it probably helps him that he's got a couple of games coming up, certainly across April, whereby they should naturally lift the mood and lift standard, shouldn't they? Because they're big games, and if you're a player, you want to be playing against the likes of Liverpool, likes of Chelsea and Arsenal and City. They're fantastic opportunities to be able to play against those teams with the pressure off as well. Really, quite naturally, all of a sudden, the momentum into the season should come back, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I agree. But we saw that in the derby at Goodison, didn't we, really? And we also, we defended really well at Arsenal, didn't we? And I just think that I know Arsenal's done the Champions League, Liverpool aren't, and it looks like the Premier League is going across the park, as it were. But the league season are probably flatlining a little bit because of the way it's gone, and I think we can use that to our advantage. And I mean, certainly, we know how Liverpool's games have gone recently, and that derby all of a sudden is looking at something that a game that can get something from. And I certainly think Arsenal at home as well. I mean, Arsenal's away results, I mean, they drew at Forest, didn't they? They've not set the world alight on their travels. I mean, not just because of our good form, but they look like two fixtures, particularly that we can get something from, to be honest with you. And Manchester City as well, whose form is patchy, and Chelsea. And so I think it'd be good. I think there's an opportunity there for players, and Moyes will tell them that. And we always say this, don't we? That sometimes a difficult run is never as difficult as what it seems when you get there, and I think that could be the case in April, and I'm praying that we take advantage of it. And in that context, it was good to see people like Timothy getting on the pitch on Saturday, and Broey getting on the pitch. It would be helpful if we can get another couple who are on the injury list back on the pitch as well after the next 2.5 weeks now, isn't it, before the next game, to get some minutes, because I think there's opportunities there, to be fair, Joe, and hopefully we can take them.
All of a sudden, Gav, you sound a little bit like Sean Dyche there when he spent all the first half of the season saying, December, everyone keeps telling me how hard it's going to be. Here you are saying the same with April.
I get your point. Whether it pans out like that, but we've had that conversation. It is true, though, isn't it? Certainly the Arsenal Liverpool fixtures don't look as daunting
absolutely.
as what they did 6 weeks ago.
And also, we should have players coming back from injury as
well.
Yeah,
and that's what I want to say.
I've been speaking to Michael Ball today for his column, and actually that's what his Tuesday morning version of his column is going to be about, really, how for a number of these players that are coming back from long injuries, they couldn't really wish for better circumstances to come back into, because the pressure's all gone from the survival fight. The team's playing well. There's a feel-good spirit. There are big games that everybody will want to be involved in. He said the hardest thing is coming back when the team's performing badly, because there's a pressure on you there to come back. You want to get yourself back to help the team. Your players, the fans want you back there. And those are the circumstances where sometimes you can rush back and, maybe overexert yourself, or, create damage and create a further setback after coming back from injury. It's quite the opposite when things are going quite well. So for the likes of Broyer and Chimiti, both did well, didn't they, coming off the bench? And Robinham's done it a few times now, but I thought he looks pretty decent with his cameos off the bench as well. You throw in Ndai, who we think will start to look like he might come back after the international break, and then they're a little bit further away, but maybe McNeil and Calvert-Lewin. And all of a sudden, there's a bit of a fresh impetus coming into those games, isn't there?
Yeah, I know they're all attacking players, aren't they? And I think we missed a little bit of that on Saturday, didn't we? The final third, in terms, I think Moyes alluded to this after in his post match, didn't he? That our deliveries in the box wasn't as good as what they were expecting, and I think we're missing NGI's bit of magic. And I think that you can do without that for a while, but sometimes it catches up with you, and I think that did on Saturday. I'm not sure the Alcaraz Harrison thing worked in terms of moving Harrison across and playing Alcaraz where he was. I think he ended up moving too much into the middle of the pitch, and so it gives him choices really, which is a bit. I should say that's a luxury he possibly didn't have. And I think somebody like Alcaraz, he's one who needs to prove himself, doesn't he, in the last quarter of the season. I think Chimiti does. I thought he looked lively when he came on Saturday. I think there's one or two players there who are knocking on the door of the first team. I think Chimiti could be one, and I think Irabunum could be another. I've been impressed by Irabunum when he has come on.
Yeah, the only thing I wonder with Irabunum is I think that and you've already mentioned it there. Everton looked at their best during a poor first half, but during a poor first 85 minutes, really, when Alcaraz went central hunting for the ball, didn't he? So I wonder if it feels like the obvious thing to do when we come back will be to give Alcaraz more minutes in the middle, which then might prevent Irobinum from getting that opportunity. It's like, you could talk about the availability of players, and for Deitch, I guess, Deitch wasn't really able to call on Breuer or Chimiti, was he? But nor could he call on Garner for a big chunk of his first half of the season. But he did have McNeil, did have Mangala, did have Calvert-Lewin, didn't he? So there were so there were some notable alternatives. It's interesting about the attacking players, isn't it? Because I thought that, if we go back to the game, first half was relatively dull, wasn't it? I mean, closest Everton came was actually through O'Brien, his long range shot, wasn't he? Forced Areola into a good save, and Pickford was made to work twice. Two good saves, the one she wanted to make from the Braithwaite header back from the corner, and then from the dipping Bowen volley. But I thought that was the big difference between the two sides in the second half, Gav. When you got to that 60 minute around, the game kind of fell into this kind of scrappy end-to-end affair. And whilst that made it more entertaining, and whilst I think home fans in the final season at Goodison want to see Everton be positive and go for wins rather than play out for draws, the danger against someone like West Ham is when you look at the attacking talent that they've got on the pitch. There's no comparison between what they have of their resources available to them and Everton at this present moment in time. That you always felt that if it became like a bit of a gunslinging match, West Ham would probably come out on top, and that's really what happened, isn't it, with the goal?
Yeah. It was a bad goal to concede defensively, wasn't it? Really, I mean, Souček who's been a thorn in our side, hasn't he? At Goodison in the last 5 seasons, I think he's scored effectively 2 winning goals in that time, and it looked as though on Saturday done the same. I made a throwaway comment, I think, on the last pod about Tarkowski. Whether his place is perhaps, I wouldn't say under threat, is like Moyes would be looking at options, because we know what Moyes is like. He likes strong defence. He likes a strong sense of defence in particular, and when all his good buys and good performers in his first incarnation were tended to be centre halves, fullbacks who play centre half, and you could list 5 or 6 of them. And I'm just wondering when he's looked at the one thing he's learned from what he's had so far at the helm is we conceded far too many goals, and not only that, the goals he conceded that on a lot of occasions have been where we've had an opportunity to defend better. And I thought Saturday fell into that category. And I wonder whether he'd be looking at central defensive options during the summer, even if Braithwaite stays. And I think that would be an interesting, little self-contained bit of selection. You'll be looking to looking at. And I think, there's options there, obviously, with O'Brien, but he's making his name as a marauding right back at the moment, isn't it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think he'd be looking at defence. I think possibly more than what he was anticipating. Because on the dice, we were reasonably okay, weren't we, defensively? If we do that on the pitch where we have problems. And I think you'd be looking at that in the summer.
Well, they're still not conceding many goals, are they? And I guess anything in defence will probably be largely dependent on whether Branthwaite goes or stays in the summer, wouldn't it? So, I personally think they're probably more pressing issues. But it was a bad goal to concede, and West Ham nearly added a few around it, didn't they? James Ward-Prowse had the bit, he nearly kind of gobbled up a chance just before the corner. Then he swung in and found Souček at the back post, and really, I thought those two players were quite instructive of what Moyes will probably want to do, what he does want to do at Everton, and two things that he wants to sort. One is he wants goals from central midfield, and Souček, that was his 7th goal of the Premier League season so far. That's something I know. Abdoulaye Doucouré's got 2 under Moyes, but I think that'll be a position that he'll work really hard to look at over the summer. There is a chance that the answer lies within his own squad. If he thinks that he can move to a scenario where he plays Iliman and Dye or Carlos Alcaraz in almost a central attacking midfield role, then maybe he may be able to do that, but we'll have to wait and see. But that's definitely something that he's really keen to have. Someone that can add goals from the centre midfield. And then the thing that's really he's really cursing at the minute, and it's been so notable across a number of weeks. Like I've actually taken now, I think, for when Everton have a set piece, more often I watch Moyes' reaction to the set piece that I know is going to be bad, rather than watching the set piece itself. And I mean, he came out and said it after the game about how he wants his centre backs to score more goals from set pieces. He looks at the ability in the air and the power that he's got in the likes of O'Brien, Tarkowski, and Branthwaite. Really that's an Everton side that should be a threat from corners, and right now they're not. And he's very clearly, put that at the feet of the people that are taking the set pieces in the corners because they haven't been very good. Again, I'm not saying Everton would go for James Ward-Prowse, although he'll be sad to see Goodison go. I think because he's had if O'Brien hadn't scored that last minute equaliser, I think it would have been 4 consecutive wins for Ward-Prowse at Goodison Park. 2 would have been 2 this season because he came on for Forest before the January. He was on loan before he returned to West Ham on the January transfer window. But again, somebody that's got the ability to be so consistent with their set pieces, that's something he's absolutely desperate for. Again, my answer might lie in the squad. Dwight McNeil, a player that Moyes has been without. But it'd be interesting to see where McNeil fits on the pitch for him next season, because the chances are you'll have Iliman and Dye, and I'd be surprised the way he's gone if they don't try and make Alcaraz a permanent deal. It'd be interesting to see. There's a lot of players there that will be options off the left, and whilst it'd be fantastic to see that strength and depth for Everton, someone may have to miss out.
Yeah, I know you're not a fan of McNeil playing down the middle, so you're assuming McNeil is not, he's not going to play there. You could do, from what you've seen this season, Njai is one of the first names on the team sheet. It's going to take a very, it would be tough not to play him there. I think if you went with Alcaraz, like in the Doucouré role, for want of a better phrase, that he's a different type of player. Would you play McNeil on the right and get him cutting inside? Perhaps would be the best way of resolving that.
I guess that depends on. I guess the interesting thing for that would be it would depend who the striker is and what type of service you think you want to give him. Because if you want a big man, if you want to be crossing balls into a big man in the box, and McNeil's got to be on the left, hasn't he? If you're trying to slip someone through with clever balls, or if you want someone to be picking out back post runs from the left, then McNeil may well be your man, I guess, mightn't he?
No, it's putting all the pieces of the jigsaw together, isn't it? I think you can get all 3 on the pitch at the same time, but you need a certain type of striker. He's probably not a big number 9. Playing, wouldn't he, really? And that will sort of play into his transfer thoughts, because we're assuming like Calvert-Lewin's going to be off, or maybe not. I don't know, dear. In the summer. and with Beto, possibly not. I'd just be, like say, and I'm just thinking about, say if Bowen was your striker, somebody like Bowen, you could do that, couldn't you?
Yeah, I thought Bowen was brilliant.
You could get him around the box.
The way in which he held off Branthwaite, it's almost less about what he did with the ball. It was more like that, what he stopped Branthwaite. He stopped Branthwaite being able to be aggressive and assertive and come out and win the ball on the halfway line. He was just always shielding him and protecting him, giving the people behind him the chance of running into space. I thought it was really very good.
Yeah, I think in that context, I think Chimiti is a little bit, though I tell you what, as soon as he went on the sidelines on Saturday, thought he's put a bit of beef on, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He looked far more robust than what he did last season. And Chimisi, though, I think he's obviously beefed out, and he's developing into a bit of a unit. He's not a traditional 9 I look at from what I've seen of him. I think he's one that you could play in and around, and I really like Chimiti, and I know we've not had enough games that he's played in, but I really like his awareness of what's going on around him and his touch.
A bit of footballing intelligence.
Intelligence,
and I thought, what was?
Yeah,
we'll come on. Be the last thing that we speak of the game itself. I think the goal, because obviously that was the highlight, and it showed impressive resilience for Everton to get that. But for all that, we can talk about the goal in a second. One of my favourite bits of Saturday was the turn and shot from Chimiti in the build up to the goal. The angle that he had, the confidence he had to take it on, and the fact that he made Areola have to work hard enough to not be able to clear the ball properly.
Yeah.
It was really impressive. It was a really tight angle, and I thought that kind of showed a little bit of spontaneity, a little bit of ruthlessness, accuracy, ambition. I'm not sure what the best word is, but there was enough there from that cameo from Chimiti to think, he is still developing, even though he's not really played. Well, he's barely played a minute of. Well, he hasn't played any senior football this season, so
no. Yeah, shows confidence as well. And I thought it was a confident display, considering he's not played all season. He wasn't, he wasn't feeling his way into the game, was he? And you are right, and I think he has got that rare bit of football intelligence, which is not necessarily shared within, with all due respect, all the squad. And I thought he did well when he came on, and he had a couple of opportunities.
I think that's the exciting thing around as well, Gav. Like when you look at the side that could start to be built for next season, if you have Ndiaye in there, you have Chimiti from the little bit that we've seen of him. If you keep Alcaraz, then, and we know they're going to be active in the market, and they're going to want a centre forward, and they're certainly going to want right wingers. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
There is the foundation of an intelligent attack, and that feels like something that we just haven't had in a long time.
No, and that's when we were talking about Moyes when he was linked with the job in January. I made the point that the negative and positive Moyes is he's never really been able to get a striker far and 15, 20 goals a season. He's never used a striker like that. What he's always had is his main threats always come with the 3 or 4 players behind the striker. He had it at West Ham, didn't he? With like the likes of Bowen, Lanzini, people like that. And Everton obviously had that like 3 or 4 where he'd have like Osman, Pino, Arteta. All skillful players who get in around the box and give you a little bit of flair, and you can see what he's trying to do here as well now, can't you? There's a way of doing that, in his second incarnation at Everton, like he did at West Ham, like he did in his first spell, where his attacking threat is not necessarily the striker; it's the 3 or 4 players behind that, and spreading the goals amongst them.
I think that's where his words are so telling when he comes to. He's very, very clearly laying the gauntlet down to Harrison and Lindstrom to try and be that player on the right of that to try and chip in with more goals, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think that's the way he sets up his team, where his creative flair and the forward threat doesn't necessarily come from the striker. It's it's that banker three behind the striker, and you can see he's got an opportunity there with because Chimiti, played last season some games, not necessarily as a number 9, more as a withdrawn player behind that. You can see Chimiti, and you've got a striker in a traditional number 9. You can see Chimiti getting in around there as well, can't you? As a sort of second striker, so number 10. And so you're thinking you've got 3 or 4 quality players like you had in this first spell behind the strike, and you can see that happening here now. And I think for Bramley Moore, it fills with a bit of excitement in terms of a lot more flair than what we've been used to over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Come to the goal. It was a good goal in the end. I thought ball from Alcaraz was great, brilliant from Idrissa Gueye at the back post, and then nice to see Jake O'Brien pop up there with another goal. To be fair, I think this was a bit of a hallmark of Dyche's side. Really. I think it's one that's been inherited and then maybe built upon by Moyes rather than necessarily created by him. But for all that, it was a frustrating display on Saturday. It was great to see that resilience again, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was a very similar goal to the Fulham goal, was it? But Young came in at the far post. Yeah, and it's good that you've got your right back in the 6-yard box. I mean, as somebody watched the team in the mid-80s, Derek Manfield would do that. He'd get in, because he was a former striker himself, he'd get into goal-scoring positions as defender, and O'Brien did that. And I said, you underestimate that finish at your peril, don't you, really? Because it was bulleted in, wasn't it?
Yeah.
By Garner again. That header could have gone anywhere, particularly, when you're under pressure. And I thought that typified O'Brien's performance. It was hard to look before. He scored 5 times last year, didn't he, in 30 games?
Including in the Coupe de France final against
PSG.
He
scored in the French Cup. He scored 2 here, and he had a great shot in the first half on Saturday as well. He's a wonderfully clean striker of the ball, and I think he was clearly our man of the match even before the goal on Saturday, and I'm hugely impressed with him. He's you get into cliches of which we're not going to get into. We know what I'm going to say, but he's got a good touch on the ball. He can get a big crowd, can't on the wings, and he does well under pressure, keeps the ball, he can pass. He's obviously, as I say, he's a clean striker, and he's got a bit of football intelligence about him, and I really like him as a player.
You're looking for easy wins as well. If you're in a situation where you can get him marauding into the box at the back post, I don't think there's. Well, I think probably the only fullback I think in the league that would be able to come close to challenging him for a ball at the back post would probably be Dan Burn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the title would be worth seeing.
Yeah, both scored at the weekend as well, and I really like him. I had this mad thought on Saturday whether he'd make a really good number 6. Just stick him in front of the back 4, because he can pass. He's got football intelligence. Obviously, he can tackle. And you probably the sort of attributes you want as a really big, strong number 6 who'll get up and down the pitch. And I like him. And he's the fact that he's gone unbeaten in Moyes' last 9 games in the Premier League, and O'Brien being in the team in that time, and not necessarily uncoincidental. I think there's a link there. He's settled in well, and he's, dare I say, when you're picking the team, he's sort of guaranteed a spec now, isn't he? In the start,
we speak about Dan Burn being someone that Moyes scouted for Everton during his first stint. Was in talk, was chasing when he was at Darlington, but
I did both see Moyes type players, don't they?
I think it was Fulham that came in and just offered terms that were a bit too good for Everton to feel comfortable competing with. But back in the days when Moyes would jump in the car in a midweek to go and watch Phil Jajelkas and co around
John Stones. Well, he wanted Robert Huth, didn't he?
So
Moyes, when he was after Lescott, he wanted Robert Huth. So the one Moyes, we talk about his weaknesses, I think, which buying strikers and integrating into the team. The one thing Moyes has done probably better than any other manager over the last 15 years or so in the Premier League is buy defenders, buy young defenders and bring them on and turn them into good players. And I'm just talking big centre halves here. We're talking full backs, we're talking Baines, we're talking Coleman, people like that. He's done that brilliantly, and I think he's done it again here, and the way he's integrated O'Brien, and he'll kick on. I'm sure it'll be, a real fixture in the team for the years to come. I think just need his concentration levels to me. There's been a couple of goals we conceded. I think one in the derby, but he's just switched off a little bit. I know he's not young. I think is he 23, 24? But coming this first season in the Premier League, I think he just needs to concentrate a bit more. But hugely impressive, and his goals are a bonus, and crucial goals as well. Won his points in both games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of the things we've touched on the summer a few times already. Be interesting to see who Moyes gets in to help him with the rebuild. One of the people that was at Goodison Park on Saturday was Rob Newman, his former head of recruitment at West Ham. He was at Finch Farm on Friday as well. At the minute, that's being said very much have been a personal visit rather than a professional one. But we'll see where things go on that. Gav, I don't think there's too much need to dwell too long. Obviously, we go into the first, it's a 2.5 week break now into the derby, and I think it's pretty clear that Moyes is just going to want to give the players a break and then try and get a few of those injured players a bit closer to fitness. He might have some behind closed doors games towards the back end of the break and before the derby. The one big thing that we've got coming up, and we'll probably speak about this a little bit more depth later on in the week, test events coming up on Sunday. Second test event this week against Bolton. You plan to go?
No, I won't be there Sunday. I'm otherwise engaged. I'm not really planning to go before the first game. Actually, the first proper game.
Yeah, I want to say you're suspicious. You're superstitious like David Moyes, but I've got a slight suspicion that you might be donning your shirt and tie for Chris Beasley Winslow session.
Yeah. That'd be worthy of a podcast in itself, wouldn't it? Really. Yeah. So it's 25,000, isn't it? I think on
25,000. Bolton should be enough invitation. And then for people who haven't seen this yet, I did the story earlier. The game is not going to last 90 minutes because as part of the work to get the safety certificate, they need to test an evacuation. So the game's going to end with an evacuation at some point in the second half. So just be aware of that, everyone.
We've seen some early evacuations at Goodison over the past 3 or 4 years.
The amount of people that said that in the comments have been
absolutely.
And I think that after 79.
Yeah, it's a reminder, isn't it, that these test events are not just for the fans to check the seats out and stuff. It's an important part of safety certificates and fire certificates and all that type of thing. And I think everybody, the focus of attention for everybody on Sunday will be just as much about getting to and from the game, and where the lessons have been learned from the first match, and hopefully they have. And because that's why you have test events, isn't it, really? And but I think that will be just as much of the focus of attention on Sunday as the matters inside the stadium. To be fair, and hopefully it'll all pan out smoothly.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic in there. So anyone heading down for the first time, I'm genuinely excited for you to get that first glimpse inside the new stadium. The biggest excitement, I think it'll be probably if this next fortnight, because it looks set to be a quiet international break. But keep an eye on the Echo website, because we've got plenty, got some big interviews and things like that planned to come your way over the coming week or so. And we'll have another podcast probably at the end of the week as well. So we've been the Royal Blue Podcast. Thanks very much for joining us. Hope you have a great week.
The Royal Blue Podcast from the Liverpool Echo.